Need a Band-Aid. What am I messing around with that for? All right. When you add assembly costs to your flooring, cheap can get expensive real fast. Today we've got 6 different flooring products on 2 different kinds of subfloor and a whole lot of hidden gotcha underneath the floors. Today we're gonna cut through all the marketing and show you the true cost under your feet. So let's start off with luxury vinyl plank. Luxury vinyl plank has had a lot of changes over the last few years and has become one of the go-to products in most residential applications for people who are changing their flooring over. This is a faux wood finish. It is a CPVC surface, which makes it incredibly scratch resistant, and the core is in most cases vinyl or stone composite, which means it's somewhat waterproof. As long as you click it together nice and tight, you can avoid spills getting underneath the floor and getting into your subfloor. Really great for people who have pets, who have accidents, and for a very busy household full of children. One of the downsides with luxury vinyl is there is no industry standard for what makes it luxury. So there are a lot of cheap products on the market that are super thin where the locking joints aren't holding together. So my recommendation when you're going with luxury vinyl, make sure your plank is at least 5 millimeters thick before the attached underpad. And that is pretty much where the beginning of quality starts. And we have got that here today. We also have laminate products. This is not your laminate from 1980. These are no longer glued and ratchet strapped together. Well, listen, laminate gets a bad rap because it's come through a lot of different iterations. It originally was there to solve a problem so that you could have a faux wood look in your room and that you could replace the need for carpets when everybody wanted to go to hard surface. Nowadays, laminate is a little bit different. It has really great embossing. Yes, it's still made of like a high density fiber, and that's basically wood dust and adhesives all pressed together, but it also has the unit click system, okay? They are also super lightweight, which means you save a lot of money when it comes to the shipping, and that keeps the cost down. So it's still a very attractive price point. Make sure you keep an eye on this product in a waterproof formula, because when you install this correctly on a good surface, you can still get a waterproof joint. So again, it becomes pet and children friendly. Now we have engineered hardwood. This is a laminated floor that's got layers of plywood going in different grains, and then it's a hardwood surface on the top. This is hardwood without the ability to resurface it, but it also allows you to have a very stable installation. It's incredibly flat, which means that you can make them into really long planks and really wide planks. Downside to this is, this will not be able to refinish, so it's not going to last you 50 to 100 years. And this is going to require you to be able to lift it and reinstall it every time the trends change with the color scheme. We also have hardwood flooring. This is strip wood. This is cut straight out of the tree and milled as is. And you'll notice that it comes tongue and groove, and it comes in a variety of different sizes in the box, okay? So they just take all the good pieces of wood, cut them up, and then they add the tongue and groove, and that's it. Now, this is a great option for people who want a floor that lasts a long time. Because it's solid wood, you can sand this down and refinish, change your color, change your style. The downside to this is that if you're installing this in an old house, you end up getting squeaky floors. If you prep your house properly, this is the longest lasting floor, and accordingly, it is also the best value option on the floor. This is the gold standard when it comes to getting the wood look, actual wood. And then we have porcelain tile. Now, if you live in wet areas, or if you live in the southern climates and it's nice and hot and you've got a concrete floor, this is a gold standard there as well. Benefit of this is it can be heated, it can be waterproof, and as long as you have a strong, stable surface, it should last 50 years. The only question is, are we still gonna like it in 50 years? I've got 2 floor packages set up that we're gonna install all 5 of those products on. On one side, we have brand new engineered floor joists. And on this side, we've got more traditional, standard 2x10 floor joists. And we're gonna show you how to install all 5 of these products according to the challenges that you'll face in the real world. Let's start at the very beginning, and that is with your subfloor. Now, on engineered floor joists, they don't have bends, twists, curving, humping, crowning, and they're always installed today with adhesives and screws. So you never have any movement, you never have any squeaks, you never have any creaks. That is a perfect floor to install with. And that is why all the products on the market are getting bigger and bigger every year, because new construction technology can handle that install without any modification on site. However, If you're going to try to put brand new flooring in an older home that's on dimensional flooring, you've got crown, you've got warping, you've got bending, you've got sagging under the load, and you're going to find that the way that your subfloor is actually installed is not going to install very well, and you have a lot of preparation to invest in because the flooring of today needs to be installed on a flat surface. So unengineered flooring surfaces, luxury vinyl plank, in most cases has a pad attached to it already. And in most cases, wooden subfloors mean the space underneath that is also conditioned space, so we don't need vapor barriers. So all we have to do is line up the grooves, get an angle, and that floor is installed. That is super simple, no preparation required. Over on the dimensional floor area, because of the bows that exist, we've got to do one of two things. Either lift up all of the subfloor and do repairs and laminate new boards along the old floor joists, or we pour floor leveler. Because if you try to install this flooring on these uneven surfaces, it's more difficult because you got to follow all the contour. Because of the nature of dips and valleys, you can't get these to close up. And they will always be opening up for you. You'll never be able to close the joints to make it waterproof because the planks don't stretch. Again, with the engineered floor joists, uniclick and drop. That's installed for life. Laminate plank reacts very similar to some vinyls that have a stone core in the fact that they're very rigid. And so the relationship between the valley and the hump becomes the biggest issue. Because when it comes over the hump, it's sticking up in the air. Because it's a floating floor, there are no fasteners holding this to the subfloor. So it doesn't follow the contour. That means as you walk, you're going to find weak spots, causing movement. You're going to break the tongue and the groove, and once you've got a broken tongue and groove, that split opens up the board and it follows the length of the room. When it comes to hardwood, whether it is strip hardwood or engineered board, on an engineered flooring, they both perform amazing. The hardwood on uneven floors was the flooring of choice back in the turn of the 18th century into the 19th century. They would install this product with nails so that they could mechanically fasten it to the floor underneath as it dipped and valleyed. Just remember, with hardwood, they come in short and long pieces. And so when you get to that hill on your subfloor, when you stick them together, you're going to have open gaps at the peak. So you always have to make sure that you're minding your install. Have a long board so that it can hit the peak and you can bend it over the hill. All right? I would recommend using a PL Premium in conjunction with your mechanical fastener. Remember, we're using a nail or a staple, not a screw. So as you walk on this, and the more aggressive you have ups and downs, the more you're going to get deflection, the more this will lift loose, and the more it'll squeak. If you want to avoid the squeaks, add the adhesive and the nails at the same time. Or just pour a little bit of floor leveler before you start, because the nails and the staples will penetrate both. So tile is the only product that can't be installed directly to your subfloor. It says minimum requirements of 1 1/4 inch of wood, or a combination of 5/8 OSB and an underlayment product that's been engineered to carry the load of the tile to avoid cracking and provide you with the uncoupling membrane. If you have a different kind of subfloor, make sure to join our membership and you can send me pictures and ask questions and I can help you with your floor assembly there. So regardless of what flooring you put in, if you want to avoid the joints from splitting open, or you want to avoid the deflection and the squeaking that comes up over time, or the lippage in the tile that you're going to run into, you must have a flat floor. And there's only 2 ways to do it. It's just a matter of you want it to cost you money or cost you a lot of time. If you're working on a budget and you like to keep your costs down, in order to get your floor flat, you can remove your nails and your screws, lift your subfloor up, and then you can actually fix the floor joists themselves. If they're bowed down like this, you can add 2x4s on the side using structural screws and PL Premium. And if they're humped like this, you can take a hand planer and take the bump off and make it nice and flat. And then when you're all done, you can reinstall the same subfloor. Remember, old floors were never glued to the floor joists. A much more convenient option is to simply add floor leveler in the areas of the floor where it dips down and sand down some of the high spots, and it's not going to affect the performance of your floor long term. Here's my leveling system I want you guys to follow very carefully. There's a few incredible points here. One, subfloor comes with a treatment on it so that when they're building a house, it can afford to get wet without being destroyed. okay? And that reduces its ability to bond to things. So we can't just pour the compound right on the wood. We've got to add a primer first. And one of the things we want to do before we pour the liquid cement on the floor is make sure that there's no gaps or cracks or holes where that can follow through into the ceiling or go underneath, because that ultimately will drain while it's setting up and then give you uneven surfaces. So then we take expansion foam around the corner of your walls and baseboards, just a little bead, close up all the gaps. The other thing this does is foam separates that concrete from the drywall that's on your walls. Drywall will take the moisture out of your compound while it's setting and cause it to get very brittle. So make sure that you've got all your subfloor screwed down first, you isolate the area, you seal it up against gaps and cracks, and then after this sets up in about 2 minutes, we can take out the primer and start sealing up the wood itself so it also isn't absorbing all the moisture out. This is really simple. It goes on wood substrates straight on, okay? No dilution required. I'm gonna try to preserve the edge of this so that it makes sense later. You don't have to use the brush though, okay? You can give you a little sloppy. So we're just gonna roll that out, and it creates a little bit of a membrane there so that the floor won't take the water out of your floor leveler when you pour it on. This product generally dries up within 15 to 20 minutes on wood. It can take up to an hour on other surfaces. Don't feel bad if you want to use a fan to speed things along. It's not going to hurt it. Don't leave puddles or ridges. It takes forever to dry up if you leave it in a puddle. Okay, here we are. This powder is very fine, and it is designed to go with like a little over a gallon of water. But it's just really hard to mix all at once. So you take it turns. The dust basically is like a solution. It gets suspended in the water. It doesn't take a lot to do that. Okay, now we're going to put the rest of this in. We'll finish off this bag. You can make this as thick or thin as you like. If you're filling a whole space, then feel free to make it runny, and it will self-level. You hardly have to touch it. But if you're just doing a repair, make it a little thicker so that you can tool it, and then it'll sit where you put it. Okay, we'll try not to make too much of a mess here today. Floor leveler 101. You can tool it. That's what that's called. And it comes back like, okay? So it does have a self-leveling capacity to it, but it won't make it perfectly level unless you help push it into the corners. Now you can tool with the flat side, try to get everything out here. At this point, your floor will not be perfect. It'll just be 99% perfect. And that is why we want to do this. So just consider that one bag of floor leveler weighs about 40 pounds. And if you're going to go more than 1/4 to 1/2 inch of thickness, filling in some of your areas, you could be adding a lot of weight and could be putting a lot more stress on your floor package than what it was designed to handle. So if you have an extreme situation and you're pouring a bunch of bags, maybe consult a structural engineer before you move forward. All right, well, it's next day, guys. And just going to show you a couple of quick things. Because we tooled this, it's not perfect. And yes, you can just come back. Then we're pretty much good to go. And the goal here is not to make it perfect. We're just trying to get the ideal scenario and the actual scenario closer together so you land in that sweet spot where the products will perform well over time. So now we're going to install all these products. We're going to start with the hardwood floor. When we're doing hardwood, what we want to do is this. You got to disassemble, and you want all of your tongues pointing in the direction that you're going to be traveling, okay? The reason for the paper is because when you're installing, you're going to take the rubber and slide that over and tap it all into place. And the paper allows that to slide. On OSB, it's not sliding as well. A lot of resistance, and this keeps your site clean. When you have OSB, you can't see if you have dirt. When you're here, you can. This is old school, okay? We've been using paper on hardwood flooring installs since the 1800s? And if you're still using paper, I'd love to know why, because there are better options on the market. Soundproofing and sound management at home is a lot more important, especially now that we have more open concept living spaces. We're not all blocked off room to room to room, so what's happening in one part of the house is heard in the other part. When you're putting in your flooring, you have an opportunity here to put an underlayment down that actually is going to reduce sound transfer and impact noise, okay, from one space to the next. So this is why we're going to use this. This is my new favorite underlayment for hardwood floors. It's mostly recycled material. And it has a vapor barrier on top, and it has a glue strip here, okay? So you can pull back the glue strip, reveals an adhesive line, and then the other side has an overlap, just like any other underlayment. It sticks down, self-adhesive, bam, now you go. There's lots more information to cover on all the subject, but for today, we're just gonna put this product in to show you how simple it is. And it does amaze me sometimes why people are so hesitant to think of hardwood as a DIY project, because it's not that tricky. The installation of hardwood requires a pneumatic tool, air pressure, and a compressor, battery powered or plug-in, doesn't matter. Just a couple other little hand tools. So we're gonna have some flooring screws, and that's for the first row, okay? Don't wanna see people installing your first row with brad nailers. Hardwood and brad nails don't go together. Well, you want your first row to be dead straight, okay? So use a chalk line, put your wood down. You're gonna drill through the surface where the baseboards get installed afterwards. Or you can rely on PL Premium, and you can set your first row in glue and then wait till the next day to install the rest of the flooring. It's your call. I'm recommending hardwood flooring staples, not the nails. These are amazing. And they are really difficult to work with if you have to take them back out. And that's a good thing. Now when you're installing the flooring, like I said, good to start with nice long pieces, okay? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just make a mark about 1/4 inch off the wall. Every few feet, and then down here. The reason for the extra space is so that, hey, there's a little bit of room for expansion and contraction, which you're gonna have on wood. Most of it in hardwood is the length, not the width. But if the wood really dries out, it does shrink side to side. And if it's a really humid environment, then it'll grow, okay? So be careful. When you have this wood, you wanna bring it into your space. I'm gonna recommend at least 3 days in a conditioned space where the weather and the season's not changing, okay? Here we go, chalk line. We bring in our board, so I can see the chalk line right there off the nose. And I have a gap between the wall for my expansion and contraction. This is a countersink bit. This is so that when you put your baseboards down, they don't sit on top of the head of the screw. And we're gonna go right off the corner, and we're gonna drop in our first screw. Now, you might have just realized, wait a minute, aren't you installing this over top of your concrete? Right? No, it's floor leveler, all right? And it drills and it takes nails and screws like wood does. So don't be alarmed. Floor level is a different kind of compound. It's a different beast. Now, again, we're looking to be right on that chalk line. Once you have that first row done, you bring out the broom or the vacuum, you clean your space again. When you trap dirt under your floor for the rest of your life, every time you walk in that room, dust is gonna go up in the air. It's really quite simple from here. I like to start with one of the smaller pieces right after that, and we'll go with a longer piece. Okay, and that's a nice long one. It's a great time to use up a couple small ones. This is called H'ing. It's when the joints are too close together. The basic rule of thumb is you don't want a joint within the same distance as the width of the wood. Okay, I like to see at least 6 inches, more like the span of your hand, but definitely not closer than the distance of that wood. For instance, if it was here, right? I'm sorry, let me just, that's okay. That's about as close as you want to get. But then consider the third row over. You don't want it H'ing there either. You don't want to have it close. Okay, these are very visually not appealing. This is one of the reasons why they have higher grades for wood that are longer boards. It's cheaper to get all the short boards because it's hard to install without having ugly joints. That's really what it's all about. So if you want a nice quality finish floor, got to spend the extra money to get the superior grade of hardwood so that you aren't sitting here installing all of these little things all day long. So what we're doing is we're looking over the whole course of this. That's too close together. That'll make a better next row. We're gonna start laying this out a few inches away, okay? And this is just a game, guys. Take the time, right, to sort all this out. You want to put a couple of decent rows in here, inspecting every board, check all 4 corners. Look at it against the light. This board has some kind of a foreign object in it. That's odd. To be honest with you, I've never seen anything like that in my life, but things happen. These are made at a mill. That one's not getting installed. Know what you can do is you can save this. You take your marker, you put a line on it, and you exit. Now you know that next time you make your trip to the saw, take this one with you, cut it down, and then stash it near the end Try to use this to fit in as one of your end boards, okay? Salvage the square footage. That's the only thing you can do. Okay, well, here's my staples. This is how it works. Slide them in. It holds 2 tracks, that's it. Now, I'm gonna tell you a little bit of advice here. I've got my compressor set to 120. This is my test piece. I'm in between the joists, okay? And I'm gonna just give it a tap and check to see if it's A, nice and snug, which it is, B, did the staple go deep enough? Look at that, that's beautiful. That's recessed right in the hardwood. It's not sitting on the surface. Here's the difference. If you don't hit hard enough, see the difference? You run into issues. So do a test piece, make sure that your relationship with your compressor and your strength, you're getting a great result where they're buried, not sitting just on the surface, and not proud, obviously, okay? Now that we know that it's gonna work, we can pop over here, making sure that she's tapped in first, and you'll notice that the location, that the end of this machine and the hose, if this was the wall, it clears for the second row. So all we do, here we go again, tap them in. The angle on that hammer means that if you're near the floor, you only hit the tongue, you'll never hit the top of the wood. You want to close this gap as well. You can see there's a gap here, right here between these 2 boards. Watch the power of putting a staple in a 45-degree angle. It'll actually pull it shut. Okay? Knowing all of this, now you've got the power to install hardwood in your home. We have a huge knot here. We do not want a staple near the knot, or it could get stuck halfway buried. There's hardwood, and then there's hardwood, okay? Knots are ridiculously difficult. Always tap in the end as well. A good rule is every 6 inches for a staple. All right. Although this is difficult work, and it's taxing on the back, this can be done by a 10-year-old. And if you grew up like I did, you had a father who would have his 10-year-olds install the flooring. Now, you see this, the wood's got a bow. So you actually have to stand on it to tap it in. When you make a mistake, and you will, it's okay, it's not the end of the world. The way that we remove these boards, okay, so that you can go back and replace it. So you go to the front edge and you lift it up. You got to get underneath this. It's going to destroy it. It's going to happen. Don't be upset. If you don't set that staple right, the board is garbage, you're not saving it. There's no amount of knowledge or tools or systems to be able to fix that mess. And the staple needs to be removed. All right? And then you do something like that, go grab your broom and clean the area one more time before you move forward. All right, let's go move on. Let's talk about the other engineered flooring, that really wide plank. Let's put that in, you'll see the difference. Let's just talk about engineered flooring for a minute. All the tongues are facing the same direction in the box. So cut open a corner, find out what that direction is, and then lay the board so that you're laying your board this right direction. You don't have to be spinning these things around your head. These are huge boards. Oh, holy cow, these are massive. These must be 5 footers. You're gonna measure, mark, and then cut. And the cut end on one becomes the first piece on the next row, because you don't want to have your floors installed like this. This is not tile. You are going to want to have a chop saw for cutting this material. Don't recommend using a skill saw, okay? Get yourself a nice 12-inch 60-tooth carbide tip blade. Make quick work of this. Because these are pre-finished, it's like a baked-on finish. You don't want to cut through the top of the blade, the material like this. You're going to kill your blade way too quick, okay? That is a lot of armor to cut through at one time. So what you do is bring it all the way out here on your slider. It's much easier on your blade. It won't overheat and go dull, and the teeth won't break off on you. Alrighty. Now, before I nail this down, remember, if you're going to use a mat like this with a wider board, you're going to want to put adhesive down to lay that product in. And then you can use adhesive on top as well. Or you can just add the staples. Now this product does go down twice as fast. It reduces the amount of time that you're gonna be bent over. Now you can actually see the number of staples that we used relative to the hardwood. Over here, there's a staple every 6 inches, 3.5 inches apart. So we're using twice as many staples over here as we are over here. And that's why you need to have a flat floor. All the inconsistencies in your floor create deflection. And so if you're stapling that far apart, you really want to consider the idea of using a leveler or using adhesives, okay? Now it's time for tile. And we're gonna put on 2 different kinds of tile. We're gonna do a row of porcelain and a row of ceramic, so you can see the difference, because there's a huge difference in cost and performance. We have long had tile that can be installed and last thousands of years. When it's installed in sand bed on stone, okay? Like it's just, there's certain conditions. Go to an old church in Italy, you'll see it, 1600 years old, immaculate floors, not a single crack. We used that same technology when we were tiling floors in North America right up until the 60s. And then somebody came out and they invented this miracle product called thin set. Because the problem with tile is it made the home construction expensive and slow, and it was an entire trade on its own just to set a floor. When they went to thin set, what they ran into is, okay, now we've got this subfloor, we got thin set, and the tile would fail. It would start cracking. Okay, well, we can't just put it on the subfloor then. We need something better than that. And so the industry, over years of failure, and quite honestly, people were turned off tile altogether for a long time. They come up with an industry standard now. They want a layer of OSB, and they want a layer of 5/8 plywood on top. They want the total assembly to be 1.25 inches, okay? That seems to be enough strength to protect against deflection so that the grout lines don't crack. Great, they finally solved the problem. Around the same time they were solving that problem, somebody came out and said, hey, we've invented cement board. Instead of plywood, we can use cement board. And they'd throw down adhesive and they'd stick down the cement board and they'd screw it in. And you have these huge buildups because now all of the houses have got floor packages like this. The subfloor is all the same height, but as soon as you add all that other floor package and then the tile, now your tile floors are taller than all of your hardwood in the house. And people were irritated with that because it's like, I don't want my kitchen to be a step up into the kitchen area when I have open concept. And so we've come a long way now. Now we have tile membranes. This is the DMX tile membrane. Great product. And the idea here is you can set this into thin set on your OSB and then put your tile on top, and then your tile is the same height as your hardwood floor. No more transitions, no more heights, no more steps, no more trips. No more places where your kid on their little plastic choo-choo train when they're 3 years old ripping around your living room is going to hit every time and cause damage to your flooring. Now this is the new standard. I will not teach you how to use OSB and plywood or cement board ever again. Tile membranes have replaced all of that. All of that kind of technology has so many different opportunities for failure. I won't use it on my projects ever again, okay? So I'm not going to teach you how to do it. The other thing is this is it's actually more affordable than going with those other products. And it installs a lot faster. And so if it performs better and it's cheaper and it's quicker, why the heck would we be talking about doing other things than that? All right, so this is the new standard. If you don't agree with me, hit up the comments, tell me what your experience is, and I'll just tell you that you're wrong. Okay? We're gonna mix a half a bag. Schluter all set. Again, this is what I recommend. I don't get paid from Schluter to have this opinion, but this product solves all your issues. It's good for membranes and it's good for tile underlayments, okay? It's good for your tile installation. And they have directions to mix on the back based on if you're putting on a membrane or setting tile. Okay, that's still a little bit too thin. We're gonna add a little bit more powder to it. Now you mix for a few minutes and then you let it slag. Let it hang out in the pail while the chemical reaction sets it up and gets stiffer. Quick finger drag test. If I drag it through and it collapses on itself, that's good. That's good. That's what you're looking for. If the hole doesn't collapse, it's too dry, you need a little more water, okay? That's all you need to know. Now, we'll leave that alone for a few minutes. Now I gotta go prep my area. Okay, we're not cleaning the floor here, we're just adding a little bit of moisture to the substrate. Not so much moisture that it's soaking wet, but enough moisture that we're not causing the thin set to dry too quickly. Okay, if this is dry and you put thin set on here, all the moisture gets pulled out before it has a chance to bond to the next product. And that is the only time that you can fail in a tile installation if you're using this product. Done, ready to go. Now up to the point where we stop mixing, it's the only time you can modify your mixture, okay? That's why the finger drag test is so important. If you come to it now and goes, ooh, it's really stiff, too late, throw it out. You can't add water at this point. Chemical reaction has already happened. You add water to this, you're turning it into soup and it's not gonna perform. So, quick mix, time for the next finger drag test and it should stay open. Yeah, that's performing much better. Okay, now we're using a trowel here to put the thin set down for the membrane. This is a 1/4 by 1/4 by 1/4. And that's for this membrane. Every company out there has their own specs. I like this because it's simple. And the goal here is because you want to have a flat floor for tile. This is not something that you can just install anywhere in the house without making it flat. And you'll notice that in the marketplace, tile is getting really huge. It's not uncommon now to be tiling with a 2-foot by 4-foot tile. And that is because the engineered floor joists keep the floor nice and smooth. There's not much left on the market that you don't have to level first. Alrighty. Peel and check, make sure you got good adhesion. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, now we have 2 different kinds of tile we're installing. One is a porcelain, and this one is a ceramic. They're both 12 by 24, very standard size tile nowadays. Now, the way that they install is exactly the same, but the reason I'm putting both of them down here is so that we can test the durability. Now, because we got a flat floor, I'm able to get away with a 1/4 by 3/8 trowel. The flatter the floor, the less thin set you have to use. Now, directional troweling is when all your thin set is raked in the same direction. And that is the technique that you want to use as your last pass, okay? And if you're going to put tile on a floor, and it's going to go up against hardwood, do the hardwood second. Wood cuts a lot easier than tile, and you can have your tile come up to the transition where there's going to be wood, and you have a full tile. And then you can cut wood to fit. Wood does not get offended when you have to cut it. But cut tile in a transition always looks like junk. This is going to be controversial, but these are small tiles, okay? We don't need to go back butter this if we have floor leveler and we're a nice flat surface. All right, we can just drop the tile and go. Here's the porcelain natural. It's all exactly the same. The curiosity here is, do they perform the same? Now, to avoid lippage, which is when a corner is higher than another corner, you can use tile leveling clips. For the purpose of the test today, I'm not going to worry about it. Now, we haven't even discussed about how to cut the tile. And there are tools you can scratch the tile and then snap them. There's a grinder that you can buy with a special wheel for cutting tile. Okay, those are all options. There's wet saws that you can rent. You can rent the scratch tool as well. When you're laying tile, put them nice and tight together. And then pull it away from the corners to create the grout joints, gaps. Nice and tight. This is the most basic installation technique that I can possibly show. And if you work like that, you just create those grout joints. All should be well, it should be nice and clean. You won't have a lot of squeeze out. Give it a quick wipe, make sure we don't have any thin set laying on there. Now we're dealing with the fake floors. Here is the 2-in-1 underlayment. On one side it's a plastic, which is a vapor bearer. On the other side is a thin little bit of foam. Okay? And if you've ever installed flooring before in your life, this is how you install this stuff. Well, yeah. Boom, you have a floor. All right? It's really kind of that simple. Now, all this does is gives you a little bit of moisture protection, and not a lot. If you want to put this down, what it does do for you is this foam, it protects you from the crunch. okay? If I had a big chunk of drywall or something on there and you put this down, crunch, all right? But with this foam, it gives you a little bit of protection against sand and that sort of thing that might be on, or dirt on your floor from hearing the crunching noises when you're walking around. That's about all it does. It doesn't provide any protection really against sound transfer, impact, blah, 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 blah. Most flooring products that are out there require a vapor barrier in a lot of circumstances. And so this is on the market as a very cheap alternative. When laminate flooring first came out, that's all that there was on the market, by the way, was this. So we all used it. We all hated it. What am I messing around with that for? All right. Of course, you could use the quiet walk. For our demonstration today, this is what we're going to be using. This is an underlayment for floating floors. And it fits in my space. That is so convenient. This is DMX One Step. This is a engineered plastic product that is absolutely amazing. I'm going to be using it in my basement, and that is one of the most common places that homeowners are putting flooring. Now, I'm not going to do a whole video on the value of DMX One Step underlayment today, but check out the design. Okay, we've got dimples, which means underneath those dimples we have airflow. Because it's plastic, it is a much more robust vapor barrier than that Roberts 2-in-1. Okay, it also has really great sound rating for impact and for sound transfer. Okay, so you get all the benefits of all three here in one product. It can go in concrete, it can go in wood. I would highly recommend this for floating floors anywhere where you have an unconditioned space underneath your floor. So everybody in the Carolinas and Florida or trailers or whatever, great floor underlayment. In a basement, it acts like a hybrid subfloor. So you can actually, if you have a relatively dry basement, you can use this. After you've built all your walls and done all your drywall and mud work, you lay this down and put your floors on top. It gives you that protection for a little bit of moisture to get underneath it. And then because it's got all the dimples and air, it'll dry out by itself over time. Okay, it's worth its weight in gold, if you ask me. Way back in time, a long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, we had laminate flooring. And if you remember, first products on the market were like Pergo. And they were click together flooring that you had to glue the joints and then ratchet strap everything together. Absolute nightmare. But it was a very cost-effective, I think those flooring panels were 99 cents a square foot. Hard to argue with 99 cents a square foot, okay? Here's how we install this flooring product. It is ridiculous. It is a snap together tongue and groove. And the reason I grabbed this one to demonstrate today is because it is apparently waterproof. Laminate flooring products that are on the market require a laminate flooring cutter. And so you just take your piece here, you mark your cut, you slide it in somewhat square, use this rail. When the arm is out, it gives you incredible leverage. So you can break the laminate clean through without creating dust. Laminate floors require the tapping block. There's just no way around it. The tapping block, it's got some ridges on the back, and you can basically set it over your flooring, put some weight on your board, give it a shot, and it locks it all together. Now, here's the problem. The locking system doesn't allow you to lock this and lock that at the same time. So, what we do is we join all the ends together first for the whole length of the floor. And you generally need two people for this, because one person has to be down here to smack this while the other one is standing on this part of the floor to lock that joint. So you would put all of this together first, and then we will lock the whole row together. I have seen countless videos of people putting in one piece at a time, and they'll do the side lock and then they'll tap it all together. And what happens is all these joints end up breaking up, okay? And that is not what you want. You don't want your joints breaking. And if you are too aggressive with that tapping block and the hammer, ultimately what happens is all the edges get damaged. In this area right here, when you look at it down the floor, it all ends up kind of peaking from all the excessive hammering. Okay? So the only way that you can install this flooring, you put it all together and you lift it all in at the same time. One of the benefits of this type of flooring is it has a really great natural wood look. Okay? Like at the end of the day, one of the reasons why we're buying this is because the embossing on this is so good. All right? It really looks good. Here we are. And that's the tools. A little hand kit. Now when you're starting it out, you can pre-drill through the holes and throw some screws in to keep it all straight line. Do the same thing as we did with the hardwood. You've got a cutter. This is a tool rental. You don't have to own one of these. Truth is, most of the homeowner-owned versions are very lightweight and they take an incredible amount of force, okay? So just rent it for a day. It's like 40 bucks. It's worth it, okay? All right. So then we come along and we got this product now. This is a luxury vinyl plank. There's only two kinds of LVT that I recommend. One is flexible, if you're in a basement and you need that flexibility, okay? Or one is a stone core, which this is not. And the board is a lot more rigid. Now, if you have flat floors, go to the stone polymer core, okay? The SBCs. They are much more durable, okay? And they're a lot quieter. They function a lot in the same way. But I just find that these thinner boards, they just don't have the oomph when it comes to the durability of the locking joint. Now you have to have at least 5mm board before you even consider purchasing it. Don't buy the cheap stuff. It's just there so that you can buy it and then be frustrated and wreck your flooring install and then go back and buy another floor next year. Now one of the coolest things about this is you don't have to rent an interesting machine to put this down. This product cuts with a knife, and you can use a square, but done. It's almost offensive, isn't it? Okay, very similar. It has the uniclick lock, so you don't have to have all that fighting around with the tongue and groove. You can just go with a surface lock. All right? And that works really good. This lock system, the surface lock system, only works on a flat floor. If you have any variation, you're going to have it popping up on you, and then every time you hit that and lock it again, it wears down. And you end up with a floor that's just perpetually got lippage, and corners are just sticking up. People are always running their feet off it and breaking it off. So be careful when you purchase your flooring. If you want an easy to install floor, this is the one. If you want something that's going to last a long time, get a floor with a uniclick. Put your rows together and then slide them all in at the same time. This is how easy this is to go together. Those joints just drop in. Again, you put it in the joint on an angle, over to the board, you lay it down, and you hammer it together. You're probably going to want the tapping block as well to close up these gaps. All right. Now we're installed. So now we get to answer the question, does floor leveler actually work? Looks pretty flat to me. Floors don't live in a showroom. They live under the kids, the dog, your furniture. So let's see how they hold up in real life. So let's do an impact test avec cast iron pan. Wow, I got a small little dent right here. Just a tiny little dent right there. Not bad. All right, we'll try the engineered. I can't imagine this will be any different from 3 feet. Yep, that dent's actually a little deeper, probably because of the softwood underneath the hardwood. All right, next up is ceramic versus porcelain. I think we all know what to expect here. Ow! Yep. The glaze definitely broke, and I cut myself. I need a Band-Aid. Now with the porcelain. Wow. That has a little bit of a dent, but I'll tell you what, that is in much better shape. And the ceramic actually has a crack starting on it. And we're gonna try the vinyl versus the laminate. First the vinyl. Wow. Like as if it never happened. That's impressive. And now the laminate. Oh, no, whatever that finish is, it's on that is permanently damaged. Wow. So when it comes to the impact, vinyl is the best. The second best was the pure hardwood floor. Everything else needs to be replaced. Now we're gonna try a 30-pound kettlebell. This is kind of simulates a 10-year-old jumping off the couch trying to give his brother a suplex. Wow, not even so much as a scratch. That's awesome. I'm trying to drop it right on the joint here. Actually, there's a little bit of a dent here. I don't know if that was from the frying pan or this. Let's try dropping this in the middle of a ceramic tile. Ooh. Yeah, not good. In the middle of a porcelain tile. Oh, that did crack a little bit. 3 directions. Let's see how the vinyl joint holds up. Yeah, no problem at all. It didn't unlock the joint either. Let's check the laminate joint. Ooh, wow. Yeah, perfect. That's pretty tough floors. One of the most common questions I get is from homeowners who are also pet owners. And they want to know, how durable is it going to be for scratching against the dogs? So I got my concrete rake here. We're going to go and try this out. We're going to do some scratch tests and see how all these surfaces hold up against that. So first we'll go with the small dog. We'll just let the weight of the rake do the job here. Wow. I don't see any visible scratches. Not bad. Let's see how a baked on glaze on these tiles work. I don't see any damage. Impressive. Now let's try the vinyl. No visible damage there either. And then the laminate. Whew, but that is sure a lot noisier, isn't it? Actually, we have some scratches here. Every single pass. Laminate failed the small dog test. But what if you got a big boy? We all know a big dog just walking through the house isn't gonna damage your floor. But when it's time to eat and they go racing down the hall and turn that corner, let's see if we can put some weight on this thing and scratch up the hardwood. Oh yeah, we definitely got some damage there that time. Yeah, some minor scratches, but more of a minor dent than a scratch, actually. Interesting. Okay, now we do the tile. They're both in pretty excellent shape. Oh, that's pretty awesome. Time for the big dog on the vinyl. Wow, that holds up really nice. Now it's time for the laminate. Whew. That was work. Now that is obviously the weakest of all the products. So if I was to rank them, the toughest is actually the tile. And then comes the vinyl, then the engineered hardwood. Wow. I guess the big difference is this. Whenever you do get any damage on a tile, you have to cut it out and replace it and regrout. When you damage one of these other boards, you can cut the board out and replace it. But when you damage hardwood flooring, you can actually touch it up on the spot because we have repair kits for fixing the surface of hardwood. So that is something to be considered. But what about when your dog gets older and he has an accident? Does the water get in between those boards or does it hold it and puddle? We'll try the vinyl, the engineered flooring, and then the hardwood flooring. So the engineered hardwood, the water got soaked up. And I think that has to do with how porous the softwood lumber underneath the hardwood is. So that is a fail. I would really think twice about engineered flooring if I had pets. The hardwood floor, however, is doing a good job of keeping that water on the surface, because hardwood, even if it does get through the gap, it's not going to soak it up fast enough. All right, well, we definitely have a winner with this test, and that is the vinyl. The waterproof laminate came in a good solid second. The hardwood was third place, and the engineered flooring, that was a distant fourth. That failed miserable. So when you're comparing your floors, don't just compare the price tags. You've got to compare the assembly costs. That's the real number. Full disclosure, I live in Canada, and our prices are going to be different than yours if you're watching this in Europe or down in the States. But the relationship to these products, I think, are going to be very eye-opening. So right away, let's just deal with hardwood flooring in Canada. This product, so we got new homes and old homes. In a new home, you throw down your paper, you get your hardwood, all you need is some staples, off you go to the races. So you're looking at $8, that's a square foot, plus about $150 a day in tool rentals, if you don't have any, okay? And that's gonna include a chop saw, a table saw, a jigsaw, the compressor, and the nailing tool, or the staple tool. In an older home, this is where it gets really fun, it's still only $8 a square foot, okay? And $150 a day for tools. Because strip hardwood like this can follow the contour and you can force it into play. Adding a little adhesive when you're coming out of a real bad valley will give you that a little extra oomph to make that work. But I'm going to suggest that you add the underlayment. This underlayment ends up being about $1 a square foot, and that brings your price to $9, okay? And that gives you sound control measures to whatever's living downstairs. That's a really good base to start with. Engineered flooring in a new house is going to run you around $7 a square foot, okay? And you have the same $150 a day in tool rental costs because it requires all the same tools, all right? Now in an older construction, this is where this gets interesting, you don't have the luxury of just dropping and walking away because of all of the dips and valleys. So you have an option. You can open up the floor and you can plane down their joists, you can laminate 2x4s and level off your floor package, reinstall it, glue it, screw it, and you don't need any floor leveling mixture, okay? And you can level your floors for about $1.50 a square foot. Or you can just put down the primer and pour a floor leveler, and that'll run you up to $4 a square foot. And this is prep. Now, you can add your $7 a square foot flooring and your $150 a day. And so now you're anywhere from $8.50 to $11 a square foot, plus the $150 a day. Now, all of a sudden, getting that new look with the sexy wide long board is going to cost you a lot more than traditional hardwood flooring. And as we noticed, it doesn't do well with spills, okay? The softwood underneath really sucks that water through. So you be your judge. If you thinking you're going to have an incontinence issue, perhaps go to the regular flooring. Now, when it comes to tiling and new home construction, you're going to have the cost of the membrane, and that runs about $1 a square foot. You've got your thin set, and it's going to be very consistent. All right, so you're dealing with about $2 to $2.50 of material for the thin set, the underlayment, and your grout. Now, that's at $2.50. Your tile, if you buy a cheap tile, you can get it for $2. And so on brand new construction, you can get away with $4.50 a square foot. That's not a bad deal. But on older homes, you now have to do the leveling. And you can do light leveling or heavy leveling, depending on your house. That's somewhere between $1.50 and $4, okay? It all depends on the home conditions. But remember, if you try to level using the tile clips only, all that thin set that you're gonna have to add to your floor to try to fix it after the fact is going to make it a really messy job. You're gonna have a lot of frustration cleaning out all your grout lines. You might as well take the effort to pour the leveler first. I'm gonna guess that most situations, even with a cheap tile, you're going up to $8 a square foot, okay? And with the porcelain, we're looking at $4 to $8 a square foot for the porcelain tile, and another $2.50 for your materials. Now you're up to $6, maybe let's just call it $10 on new construction, and up to $14 on old houses. all right? You start to get an idea of the relationship, which is why you only want to use tile in wet areas unless you're in the south and you're slab on grade. Then doing tile makes sense because you don't need to use as much leveling. Even if you had to remove an old tile, grind everything down and go with new tile again, you can still go down there, use your membrane, use your thin set, and you can still come in at around $8 a square foot as the homeowner. And of course, none of these prices include installation by a professional crew. This is just for you. So when we're dealing with vinyl, in brand new home construction, you don't have to do anything. You can just drop it and walk away. That's $4. All you need is a utility knife and a tape measure, and you can be pretty much okay to cut just about all of that in. You might want to have a jigsaw just so you can cut around tricky areas, but that's about all you've got for the installation. Now I'm going to recommend, depending on where you live, you might want to have this really good underlayment. The underlayment's another $1.25, okay? That gets you to $5.25 for that in a good condition. If you're in a basement or if you're in an older house, it is imperative that you do the leveling, and that is up to another $4. Now you're at $9.25 a square foot for a simple vinyl. But if you don't do that, it won't last. These hammered down joints on an uneven surface will release, and they will get full of dirt, and they will not lock properly again the next time. It's a nightmare. $9.25. Now, the good thing about this floor is it does perform well and it's great with dogs. All right, so it does solve a problem. It is incredibly tough and it does have a warranty for 20 to 25 years depending on the product. And so it is a desirable product. It's also nice and quiet. It's a great soundproof for between floors. In the United States, we even sell mass-loaded vinyl to go underneath flooring to stop sound transfer. This is basically a mass-loaded vinyl floor. So you get soundproofing and finish at the same time. Not a bad deal, but don't think just because you found a $3 vinyl floor that you're going to stick it in and save a bunch of money. Most cases, the cheap floors don't lock well. So make sure you're getting at least a 5 mil thick. It's going to be the $4 to $6 range for a quality product. And they can get more expensive than that if you want it to look like actual hardwood with the V-notching, all right? But at $9 a square foot, that's a really realistic price for a basement or an older house. Now, comes the laminate. All the same rules apply as the vinyl, okay? For the waterproof stuff, you're gonna be closer to the $4 again. Same rules apply. You might wanna have the underlayment, all right? So then that's a $1.25. You're at $5.25, okay? And if you wanna go with the cheaper stuff, you can get that stuff for $2. And if you're that cheap and you're upstairs, you don't want an underlayment, but you've got to level the floor. You've got to have some kind of an underlayment, unless it comes with an attached pad, okay, because you're going to get noise when you walk. You're still looking at another probably close to $4 a square foot to do your leveling program. Unless you're going to open your floor to cut costs, then you can get it down to about $3.50. Go with the cheap underlayment, fix the floor the old-fashioned way with a hammer and a nail, and then you can get a $3.50 floor. But at the end of the day, guys, you've really only got a couple things you need to consider. Which floor is going to perform the best for you in your home with your circumstances? Again, the vinyl is the most durable and the hardwood is the easiest to install in any condition. I would start with my journey looking there. Well, so far in our series, guys, we've compared toilets and now we've compared flooring. Let us know in the comment section what kind of product you want us to compare next. And we'll see you in the comment section. Cheers.